In today's video, I just wanted to do a weekly update on the Ethereum Layer 2 ecosystem. Just some important things that I think you should be aware of. Now, this channel, it was mainly focused on Solana before, and a lot of you will know that I used to do a Solana weekly update video. However, I've transitioned away from that and I want to start covering Ethereum and its Layer 2s, particularly because I think it's definitely the way of the future. I've basically been Ethereum and roll-up pilled, and I definitely believe that's the way that things will start shifting. I'm a strong believer in Layer 2 2022, and I just wanted to explain quickly why I believe the narrative will shift. So here, Polinya put up an excellent Twitter post just talking about transaction fees for AMM swaps right now, and you can see here that Ethereum Layer 2s, a lot of them, is actually cheaper to do swaps on them than alternative Layer 1s. For example, so ZK Sync, Optimism, Loopring, DYDX, all of those Layer 2 solutions, it's cheaper to do an AMM swap than Avalanche and BSC. Now, those were two alternative Layer 1s that are touted to be Ethereum killers. Binance Smart Chain, it didn't really work out. I think that chain's mostly mostly a ghost chain right now. The Avalanche C chain is seeing a lot of usage. However, I see that definitely reverting because it's getting really cheap to transact on a lot of these Ethereum Layer 2s. And actually, it's going to get a lot cheaper in the future as well. As more and more people pile onto them, the costs go down because the costs are socialized. So, I mean, Optimism is already cheaper to use than Avalanche right now. And I expect that trend to continue in the future, but I'll speak more on that later on in this video. But the first thing I wanted to talk about is Debridge. So Debridge has partnered with 1inch to offer arbitrary cross-chain swaps in one transaction. So you can use Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, Polygon, and Arbitrum to do this. On the Debridge website, they have their own AMM here. So effectively, what you can do, say you have Matic on Polygon, for example, you can then swap that into ETH on Arbitrum, or you can take any arbitrary coin that you want, right? So for example, you could probably swap Quick if you wanted to into Balancer on Arbitrum, and then you'll pay a fee for doing so. But stuff like this is really good and it helps push crypto adoption further. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is this post from Optimism. So this is their sort of yearly review. So as you can see here, they have saved up to $1 billion in gas fees for their users, which is great. And you can see the need for these Layer 2s, right? So effectively, it allows you to have Ethereum level security, but you're not paying Ethereum fees. You're paying a very small fraction of the amount. And as you can see here, it saved up to $1 billion for people who have used Optimism over the past year. Optimism also did a $150 million raise. So I expect that will go towards, ecosystem development. And typically when an entity does a big raise like this, something big is coming in the future. Now, I don't know what this is, but I think that you should position yourself in order to benefit from this. But just going down here, they have talked a little bit more about fee reduction. So they've already cut fees by 30% in the last year, and the imminent launch of core data compression will reduce them up to 40% more. They're also contributing to EIP 4844, which promises to further slash fees by up to 100x. So it is conceivable within the next 8 to 12 months, given everything goes to plan, that transacting on Optimism will have a cent fee, which is extremely cheap, and it's going to be it's going to be cheaper than a lot of the alternative Layer 1s whilst retaining Ethereum level security. So definitely we're going to see the rise of Ethereum Layer 2s this year. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is Aave v3. So Aave v3 has officially deployed, and it's deployed on a bunch of different alt Layer 1s, as well as Optimism and Arbitrum. So let's talk about it. What's new in v3? So there's a couple of things. So we have portals. So this facilitates cross-chain transactions. So for example, you'll be able to add collateral on Aave Optimism and then borrow against that collateral on Aave Arbitrum, which is great, and that just really helps with the composability between each of these chains, as well as a high efficiency mode. So this unlocks high borrowing power. So typically when you're borrowing on Aave, your LTV ratio on a lot of the assets might be like 70-75%, but I think you can up it to like 97%. Of course, this increases risk of liquidation. However, it just improves capital efficiency for those looking to borrow. We also have isolation mode. So this allows for new assets to be listed while protecting the protocol. So one reason why Compound, for example, they only have like a few assets that are actually listed on Compound. And that's because if you have a longer tail DeFi asset, or an asset that can actually be manipulated, it actually puts the whole lending and borrowing marketplace at risk. We've seen Cream Finance, for example, get hacked like 3 or 4 different times because they list a lot of long tail assets. And so with this isolation mode, it allows more assets to be listed on Aave without endangering everyone using Aave. So that's cool, because we've seen problems in the past with for example, Debridge, their native token bond wasn't allowable collateral on Aave, and that caused like a bit of a stir. I mean, it was a bit of a longer tail DeFi asset, and it did make sense, but we'll avoid controversies like that in the future. And then we also have gas optimization here. So gas costs for all functions are reduced by 20 to 25%. So that's great. The next thing I wanted to talk about is Synthetix. So they have launched their perpetual futures through Quenta. So you can trade Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Link with up to 10x leverage. However, there are some drawbacks. So within the first weeks of trading, they're going to have open interest caps of 20 million SUSD for Bitcoin and ETH, and $2 million for Link. And so this is to optimize futures market parameters under real world conditions. And that makes sense. It's a beta. They don't want to go, open it up fully because, it could crash. And so they gather this data up, they make sure it's optimized for full release. But this actually offers benefits for Synthetix stakers. So futures provide an additional revenue stream due to exchange and funding rate fees, which is good. And for stakers, it also means that, perp futures reduce the need to hedge the additional debt due to inherent self-hedging and limited exposure through market size caps. And this is all available on Optimism, so you'll be able to do this with cheap fees as well. So this is on Quenta. You can see here you can trade Bitcoin, ETH, and Chainlink, and you can see the different funding rates here and the 24-hour volumes. And it seems people are most interested in trading ETH, which is fine. But basically, this opens up some interesting strategies that you can do on chain. Funding rates here are completely different to the funding rates that you see on Perpetual Protocol, and Perpetual Protocol is another perpetual futures DEX here on Optimism. And so the funding rates you can see here, so that's 0.0033, whereas ETH on Quenta, it's 0.0007. So you can arb those rates if you wanted to. I mean, that's, it's a very small yield that you're going to get there, but it's risk-free yield anyway. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is Vovo Finance. So that recently launched on Arbitrum mainnet. Vovo Finance offers the first ever DeFi principal protected products. So I have a video on my channel. I covered the launch of Vovo Finance, what it is, how you can benefit from it, and I just do a deeper dive. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description down below. However, the basic concept around Vovo Finance is effectively that you deposit USDC into their vaults. They take that USDC and start farming on Curve. Any farming rewards from Curve Finance are then reconverted back into USDC and then thrown into GMX for a leveraged trade. I think it's like a 15x leverage trade. And then whatever profits from that GMX trade are then returned to you. So effectively that should boost your Curve APY from like 4% to 10 to 20%, depending on market conditions and whether or not you guess the right direction. So this is a really interesting protocol, and I definitely recommend you go ahead and check it out, see whether or not it's for you. That video just does cover it, a little bit further. And I also compare it to Dopex, which is an options structured product protocol on Arbitrum as well, just outlining the key benefits and drawbacks. So definitely go ahead and check that out. Sith Swap has been announced, so they're coming to Starknet. So this is going to sound familiar. They're a stable plus volatile swap exchange with ultra low fees and slippage, but they're going to use the V free. So free rewards and bribes governed by vote escrowed NFTs. So if this sounds familiar, that's because basically it's Solidly, but on Starknet. So you can expect the same sort of mechanics and you know, game theory around Solidly to also apply to Sith Swap, but we won't see this launch for a while. Their testnet is due Q2. However, you know, they have to wait for the Starknet bridge as well, and so there are a lot of projects waiting to deploy on Starknet that can't right now because there is no Starknet bridge. So Vovo Finance put out a post just outlining what happened for the past month. So they launched last month, and I did a video just covering them, what they are, how to benefit from it, and just a deeper dive into Vovo Finance as a whole. So this Medium article, they just go over the post-launch statistics, what happened, so on and so forth. But what I want to cover is the next steps. So they have a couple partnerships brewing. So with Redacted, they have a deposit proposal for them to deposit Geom into Vesta. They also partnered with B Protocol, which is a backstop liquidity protocol that automates the liquidation process. They also have a proposal with GMX to add VST to their GLP index. So if you're not familiar with that, the GLP index has a bunch of, I think, like 3 to 4 non-stable tokens and then 4 stable coins in there as well. To add VST would hopefully add more utility to the VST stablecoin. Because it's new, it doesn't really have that many integrations right now, because right now I think for the most part people will mint the VST stablecoin and then switch it back into USDC, because there's not much you can do with the VST stablecoin. So this is really good for the adoption of the VST stablecoin. And the last thing I wanted to cover today is this post from SynFutures. So they have a new Arbitrum trading contest. So you just need to trade on Arbitrum and you're eligible to win a limited edition SynFutures NFT, as well as, I think if you get in the top 100 traders for P&L, you also have a chance to win as well. If you want to know the full rules, you can read this Medium article here, and I'll leave a link in the description down below. And so to just end off this video, I wanted to point you towards some cool resources. So Pseudo Theos on Twitter, he does a bi-weekly ZK Sync update newsletter. Definitely go ahead and follow him if you want to keep up to date with ZK Sync. And then we also have Swagtimus. So Swagtimus does a Starknet weekly roundup. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening on Starknet, go ahead and follow his newsletter. Then we also have a really cool Twitter thread here from The Thai, so I'll leave this in the description down below. This is just talking about dank sharding, and it's something that I think more people should know about, and it's definitely a narrative that is going to take hold. We also have a Twitter thread from Alo, so this just goes into Starknet, well, a deeper dive. If you're not familiar with Starknet, or if you want to become more familiar with Starknet, then definitely go ahead and check out this Twitter thread. And then we also have this article from Tolks. So basically it just goes over the zero knowledge landscape and basically everything that's happening in the ZK rollup world. So if we just scroll down here, there's a bunch of announcements as well as the current players, and it will just get you more up to date with what's going on in the ZK rollup world, what you should be looking forward to, and just getting you familiarized with what's happening. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this one.